Hi, and welcome back to 15-Minute AI series. Today we're looking at remote MCPs, but first a little bit of history. So, when MCPs were first announced and demonstrated by Anthropic around November 2024, there's huge excitement amongst the AI community. But to me, at that point, there seemed to be several things missing. While it was great to see videos of people controlling Blender directly from within Claude and other desktop applications, it failed for me and the enterprise community in several ways. In many early demos, the MCP servers ran locally or in simplified environments, which doesn't map easily to enterprise needs or scale. So the enterprise challenge, as I saw it, and still do, encompasses such things as scaling, authentication and governance. So for me the question was, and this is of MCPs, could I use them to access additional information or additional data sources and get the correct information into my prompts? So the heart of prompt engineering, or even context engineering at this point. So this also then led to things like thinking about authentication. And while allowing access to additional data, how would you control access to that data? So I'm glad to say things have moved on since those days. And the MCP specification has been updated, and we now have the ability to call remote MCPs. And we've seen companies like HuggingFace and GitHub deploying their own MCP servers on their infrastructure that you can access simply by changing the config in your desktop or your remote client. Now, to me, that's all very well, but there still leaves a big issue for enterprises and teams of people wanting to share access to remote information. So how does an enterprise manage the new infrastructure required to run and manage MCPs? That could be hundreds or even thousands of MCP servers. So we also have companies like Cloudflare that now provide an MCP server hosting service, but they also seem to require some development effort. So is there a different way? One that gives me access to a host of MCP servers, providing access to a host of data sources while handling all the infrastructure and things like authentication, where I could just access those by updating my config file. No changes or no development required. So I'm happy to say there is, and while there may be several of these, I've recently come across a site called Deploy. In fact, here we go. So this is deploy-mcp.com. Now, this seems to do things slightly differently, but I must admit I do like the way this works. And while it still appears to be in development, many aspects, many parts of the system already work. And one of the great things about this is they seem to have an enterprise option where they will sell you the software, so you can see this running an enterprise behind their own firewalls and providing access to all their own data sources from within all their clients, from within all maybe thousands of users across the system. Now, what this seems to do is it seems to wrap open API specs within an MCP wrapper, which you can then access. I'm going to look at that now anyway. So let's have a look at the system first of all and give you a quick demonstration. So I'm going to log in. So these are MCP servers I already have access and I've already configured. Now what I'm going to be using for actually accessing those is Jan. So Jan is a desktop based open source client for access to large language models. At the moment I've got it configured to be using O3 Mini. You can use it and configure it for all sorts of things. You can actually go into the settings and there's an MCP servers you can set up here. Now I've set these up and these are all remote, and you can see this from this remote URL. So this actually points to a particular MCP server hosted and running on Deploy MCP. So let's see how that actually works. So let's go back to, in fact let's find out how I do actually go back to, appear to have actually shut down Jan. So let's start that again. So here we go. So I've got several MCP servers configured. If I click on this spanner here, I can see those that I've got configured, which also gives me the list of individual functions. So currently I've got it configured to access my G drive. I've also got to access a remote Postgres database, and this is very particular for UK police data. So I can access live, when I say live, this is data which is normally around a month or two old, crime data, priority data, information about different police sources. So this is information that won't be in any model that's been released within the last few months, certainly, because most of the data has normally been truncated several months before final release of any large language model. So can I use any of these? So let's first of all, let's try and use my G drive. So list all files on my G drive with MGS in the title. Now what this will do, I've got it configured, so it will actually ask for approval, telling me what it's going to call. And then here we go, straight away this has gone ahead, accessed data. I've now got data, and I've now got, in fact, a large language model, or a chat, or certainly a chat interface into everything I have within my G drive. And there are several different functions there. These are not all the functions, so it does appear from the website you can actually go into it. So let me quickly flip back here. If I click on the Google Drive, when I actually set this up, I did set it up with OAuth 2 authentication. So again, talking about authentication as I did earlier on, this is now configured to work with my G drive directly. If I look at view, this is what I copy in to access it. It also requires an API key, which you set up here, just to make sure everything's secure. But I did want to show you, if I click on edit here, so what they've done is they've actually created an open API spec which actually conforms to Google's G drive RESTful API. So you can change this. So you could actually, because there are more functions in this, you could add to this, or you could actually delete most of this, and maybe you only want a single function there, something very particular. So I'm not sure at the moment whether they allow you to actually create your own, but certainly you can edit it in the existing specification. So if we flip back again here, we've had a look at that. I want to have a quick look at Postgres. So I do actually have access to a Postgres database. It's configured in there. So show me the status of my database. So once more we send that off, it requires permission. So I'll go ahead, I'll let it do that. Here we go. So it's now come back with the state of my database. Look at that. So connection, saturation, auto vacuum enabled, no deadlocks. Fantastic. Can I see the schemas? Okay, show me the schemas for my database. Once more, it goes away. And again, because we're calling a new function, give it authorization, permission. Here we go. So we've got information schema, we've got PG catalog, and also public. If we select that, we can actually see the commands that are being sent down. So let's see if we can list, show me the tables in the public schema. So once more, it's asking for approval. It goes away. It's running at the moment. It looks like an error, so it's not working. So let me know if you'd like me to troubleshoot. Yes, please. I have tried this and it does work, so now it's going ahead. It's going to see whether it can actually resolve the issue based on the permissions and the interface it's already got. And there we go. It's resolved the issue itself. It's come back and it's given me the list of tables. So how many rows in the users table? Once more. There we go, we've got 4 rows. Fantastic. Now, so obviously you can do a huge amount more. You can obviously update or insert or delete records. Now, imagine creating a new SaaS which consists only of a database and then giving access to that database via an MCP where the only interface is via natural language and large language model. Now that would be something. Could you actually create an application with just a backend? Now while I leave you to ponder on that, I just want to show you one other MCP server. So this is police data. So there's lots of different API calls there. So let's get the list of UK police forces. Now again, this has been around for years, so this should be in every large language model data set, but as it is, it's making a call because it did ask me for that. Okay, that's great. Let's see if we can dig down. So give me the neighborhood or the neighborhoods for Kent police. So again, I'm going to do another call so I know the data, or certainly the API, and there's certain specific piece of information that it can get related. Here we go. So straight away, it's giving me a list of, well, still producing it, a list of all the police neighbourhoods within Kent. Let's pick on one of those. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, so it's still running. Quite a few there. Okay, what details can you give me about? Now I'm not sure what API call it's going to give, or certainly going to undertake for this, but we'll see what information. Here we go. Right, so we've got the name, we've got the description, we've even got the coordinates and the contact details, as well as the force URL. So I do know, actually, give me the policing priorities for this neighbourhood. Now this is data that can change, and it does change, so it shouldn't be, or certainly past or old data will be in large language models, but certainly this is new data. Let's see what it says here. So antisocial behaviour, homelessness, begging and road safety. So this seems to be the priorities. Is there any way to determine when that was updated? Can you now, I'm not sure if this is going to work or whether that data actually exists within the API, but I'm just making that call. Okay, so it doesn't have a timestamp for that. That's fine. So this was really just meant to be a quick demonstration of how you or an enterprise can access remote information using MCPs without having to actually run any MCP servers locally. Configuration, which is very simple configuration, certainly with Jan client, very, very simple. And again, as demonstrated, you can also allow access to other services which require OAuth 2. And there on the website, if we flip back, we can have a look at what MCP servers they currently have as well, actually. So you've got access to Apollo, blockchain, company's house data, Dropbox, Google Calendar. So again, that same Google interface, we've approved it to access your data. You can contact or certainly allow access to your calendar events as well as your Google contacts. I'm going to try one more thing, and again, I may remove this from the video just depending on what kind of data it comes back with, but first of all, let me see. I'm going to add a new server actually, so let's add in Google Events. So there, I've now created and I've also authenticated, and you would have skipped that part in the video. Let's have a look what I can do here. So let's have a look. Let's change this. Well, let's copy that, sorry. Go back to my front end. I can go back to settings. Once more, I'm going to turn off the recording certainly for the next few seconds while I set this up with my API key. Right, we're back again now, so let's have a look. I've now got Google Calendar as well, so I can create the event. I've only got one function in that, so let's just have a look. So create an event in my calendar with title, let's do Jan test for, let's have it for today. So let's say Saturday 1st of November at 2 p.m. and this is now GMT. Let's see if there's enough information there. So it's going away. So it's asking for permission. According to that, it's now scheduled. Let's click on that link actually. So here we go. So it's actually created it. I'm going to try and blur out some of the other information, but now I actually have that details just there. So once more, thank you very much for watching and listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.